Today's topic is about pitching and about giving you tips to help you pitch. I will let Annabelle tell you what it is about and what she wants you to do, because this will be interactive. So please enjoy, relax, and welcome to the family. And please welcome Annabelle.
Okay, thanks. So first of all, I actually just want to talk about applause for a second. So I'm not French. I almost am. I'll be French in like 2 weeks. But I'm Canadian, okay, which is kind of like an American, except for we give people health care, and we don't care if gays want to get married. That's just their business, right? So in America, when we ask somebody to applaud, it's not like this. It's my experience that French applause are kind of like golf course applause, or like if we go to the ballet, okay? So what I want to encourage all of you to do is the next time you are at a demo day, you are seeing someone who's gonna pitch, I want you to encourage them to applaud them like an American public applauds. So can we just test that right now to see how that works? Like at the Super Bowl, the drunk Americans are applauding for their favorite team. Let's just try that. Go ahead. Okay, that's way better. That's way better, okay? So I can promise you, anybody that's ever been up here in this space that has to pitch in front of investors, in front of journalists, or whatever your case is, to be applauded like that would make them feel a whole lot better, okay? Now, someone is gonna come up here and pitch today, so I want you to remember the Super Bowl American public applause when that person comes up here. So is anyone here for a very pragmatic reason, because they're like, oh my God, I have to pitch my startup in a week, 2 weeks, so I'm gonna come to this workshop and see if I can learn anything. Is that anyone's case here today? You, sir? You, sir? So, Mr. Hipster Glasses, I'm gonna ask you to come actually up here and sit in the front, because don't freak out, but in about 20 minutes, you're gonna pitch your startup. Oh, Hipster Glasses says no. Does anyone else wanna try? Oh, way less hands all of a sudden. This is a... Okay, sorry, Hipster Glasses, you're it. Oh no, we had turtleneck. Okay. So come on and sit here, and you're gonna pitch, but I'm not gonna kind of release you into the wild just like that. I am gonna give you 10 tips in order for you to have what we consider at the agency. So my agency is called Present Perfect, a kick-ass pitch. Now, what is a kick-ass pitch? So once again, Canadian, come from North America, and the analogy that I find that is the most efficient is that pitches in France, and I'm gonna even go as far ahead and say continental Europe, they're like cheese. What do I mean by that? I mean that the cheese in France is amazing. You've been doing it forever. You experiment with all kinds of like weird things that we'll put inside, cider, truffle, and it's delicious, okay? It's part of your culture. You've been doing it forever. You grew up with it. And this is what the pitch is like in North America. I mean, we eat self-esteem for breakfast. So when we think of cheese, to me, it's like the pitch in America, meaning that we grew up with it. It's we have show and tell in school. Like, does everyone know what this is? You're 7 years old, and you have to get up in front of the whole class and talk about something that you brought or something that you did. So oral communication and pitch, essentially, is something that we grew up with. Now, the cheese in France is amazing. The pitches are not so good. The pitches in America are amazing. The cheese, not so good, right? I promise you that cheese in a can in America is a thing. It exists. So, considering that this is our analogy, France, cheese, oh my God, pitches, not so much. America, cheese, WTF. But pitches, awesome. Let's see if we can get better, because in America they are getting better, right? I promise you right now, as we speak, there is some bearded hipster in Williamsburg in Brooklyn right now, making like organic cheese from unpasteurized milk that he sells at a farmer's market for $40 a pound. But what he's doing is he's being inspired from the French who are good at it in order to be better at his craft. And that's what I would like us to do today, as I would like us to look at the Americans in North America who kind of have this pitch down to an art. Like, I don't know if anyone here has ever been able to go to a demo day at a place like Y Combinator or Techstars or anything like that. Not the same ball game, right? So that's what we're gonna do today. Now, I'm going to base these 10 tips on the foundation that you have a pitch, you kind of know how to pitch, you know that we need to have a hook, a problem, we need to talk about the market, all the basic ingredients of pitch are there, the 10-step pitch, okay, for like a classic 6-minute demo day pitch. So what can we do to make this better? 10 tips, here we go. I'm gonna go fast because I only have 20 minutes and we wanna get Turtleneck up here as quick as possible, all right? I'll find out your real name very quickly, I hope. So what is the first rule of pitch? So at the agency, we don't just do pitch. We, of course, put good energy into our karma bank by helping startups who need to pitch, but we also do kind of like the big American-style keynote. We're the ones who will help companies like OVH with their big keynote, LinkedIn, etc. So we do the little 10-deck PowerPoint presentation up to the €1 million event with the 3D and the lasers and all that kind of stuff. So whatever the event is, whatever the pitch may be, the first rule is always the same, okay? So I think that user-centric is a term that's not foreign to anybody here. For pitch, it's exactly the same thing. You need to respect your audience. So why did I put this guy on my slide? Because to me, he's kind of like the anti-respect, okay? So don't be a Donald Trump. Respect your audience. So what does that mean to respect your audience? It means that you have to think about them when you are pitching. What makes them tick? What are their expectations? Why did they come to this demo day? What could I say to impress them? What could I say to piss them off? Going over time, that's disrespect for your audience. Not practicing enough, that's total disrespect for your audience, all right? So you need to put your audience at the center of everything, and who is my audience is the question that hides 100 other questions, some of which that I've already stated to you, okay? What do they expect this pitch to be? What can I do to meet those expectations and slightly exceed them? Okay, surprise is a good thing. Too much surprise is not a good thing. So if here's the expectations and we go like this, great. If here's what they're expecting and we're way out here in left field, they're like, wow, he's a bit bananas. So think about who is your audience. Am I pitching to primarily investors? Okay, great. What's the currency for an investor? What makes them tick? What can I say to get their attention? What's the information that they want to know? What are the things that I can include in my pitch to minimize the questions that I'm going to get afterwards, or make sure that the questions are really specific interest questions? It's all about empathy. So in the same way that when we're talking about a user experience and really working to have a streamlined, pleasant user experience for our application or our technology or whatever it is that you're selling, it's the same thing for our pitch. Okay? What can I do to make sure that the public is going to feel like king? They're going to feel like I've prepared for them. They're going to feel like I've considered what their point of view may be. They're going to understand that I'm not wasting your time. And that's going to impact how much preparation you're going to put into your pitch. So just for your information, a quick figure is that at the agency we say that 1 minute of pitch equals 2 hours of preparation. So that's a number that scares a lot of people. But if you think about it, when you're on a 6-minute pitch, the fact that you're going to invest 12 hours into your pitch, it's not extraordinary. And those hours of preparation can be the writing, because you should write your pitch, every single word. The slide preparation, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The time that you spend rehearsing in front of your cat, husband, significant other, whatever. The time that you're like under the shower just thinking, rehearsing your pitch. Okay? So respect your audience by preparing. Respect your audience by trying to put yourself into their skin for a minute to think about what could I do to make them feel like they haven't wasted their time here. Okay? Which brings me to my next point. A huge disrespect for the audience that I see so often, and you don't know that you're doing it, is this. So the amount of pitches that I've seen that start with, yes, hello, I am Jean-François. I am X startup and I do a big school, you know. I did the HEC, is my school. And they start with their CV. He's like, the guy's 23 years old, okay? And he's starting with his CV of where he went to school and his diplomas. So that is something that you're doing. You're totally disrespecting the public. You're saying that because you feel insecure. You're saying that because you feel maybe scared to be here, and you know, okay, I did this big school, as we say in France. We would say like an Ivy League school in America, and that's really reassuring to a lot of people. It's certainly reassuring to me. So I'm going to start with that because that makes me feel better. When you're pitching, very rare are the occasions where you're going to be doing things that make you feel good. This is an uncomfortable spot to be in. It's a scary spot to be in. But you need to just push through that fear and embrace that fear and logically sift through and decide what is going to make my pitch better for my public, irregardless of the fact that it's uncomfortable for me. Okay? So once again, it's very rare that you're going to start with the team. But what we say at the agency is if you want to sell fruit, you got to put the biggest and reddest berries on the top of the basket, which means get to the point. So if your biggest, reddest berry in your fruit, basket of fruit that you're selling is the fact that you have an amazing team, okay, great. Like let's say that the CTO is ex-NASA and is a rocket scientist, and the other person is Beyonce. Well, maybe you would want to start with team in that case, but how many rocket scientists are there in this room? Not a lot. How many Beyoncés? Maybe in your soul you can feel like you're Beyonce. So you probably aren't going to want to start with team. And I can promise you that for an investor, maybe for a journalist it might be a little bit different, for an influencer, it's not the number one criteria that you want to put on your pitch. If your diploma is the most interesting thing about your startup, you might want to be a bit worried. Okay? Tip number 2, don't start with your CV. So if you don't start with your CV, what do you start with? What do we start our pitch with? Well, we're going to start it with a hook. So, what is a hook? A hook is not your personal story. It's not a personal anecdote. A pitch that starts with, yes, I want to tell you the story of Camille. She's very unhappy because, and then we go through the story of Camille. Okay, that's better than, I'm going to talk to you today about, or today what I will say, and then you go through like the agenda slide in your pitch. So, the personal anecdote or whatever, great. That's always a little bit better than today, and we give what we call the Wikipedia pitch, right? We've all heard the Wikipedia pitch. Here's information, and now here's more information, and now here's information, and here's some more information, just like a Wikipedia article. So what is the definition of a good hook? First of all, a good hook should never last more than 5% of your total talking time. The definition of hook that we use at the agency is something that will show the public that I am worth your time. Because a pitch is a series of transactions, isn't it? I have information that I want you to buy, and you give me your attention on credit. So make sure that that 30 seconds of attention that the public has given you on credit, they don't feel like, oh, I wasted my currency. Okay, so the definition of a good hook is something that incites curiosity. The definition of curiosity is a gap in our knowledge. So we make sweeping judgments about people. As soon as we can see them, we're already starting to calculate them and make judgments about what's their deal, what they're about, kind of putting them into a box, because we need to do that as human beings to process information, right? What's this person about? What's their deal? As soon as you have a hook that shows someone that you may not have totally understood everything about me, cool, I'm interested. That makes me want to know more. So a hook can be something like figures that might shock me. It might be something about the market that I didn't necessarily know. That comes to me in a sentence, okay? We don't go on for hours and hours. For today's intents and purposes, we are talking about the classic 6, give or take a minute pitch that we would use for a demo day, okay? You should always have 2 versions of your pitch in your mind, this 6-minute version, and then also the elevator pitch. Elevator pitch, okay? The quick 40-second pitch that, you say, oh, can I pitch you? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. It can be a shocking image. It just has to be something that, because you've considered your public, because you respect your public, because you're not being a Donald Trump, because you've really considered who it is that you're talking to, you're able to know what they're probably expecting and sort of break out of that classic stereotype pitch, because most pitches are the squeezy cheese, right? They're not great. So anything that you're doing above and beyond that, awesome. So start with a hook. Now, I said that this hook can't last more than 5% of the presentation. It's all about being brief. And the next tip that I'm going to give you is, if you can't tweet it, you can't pitch it. If you can't say what you have to say in a tweet, you can't say it in an hour. And this is true for every project that I've ever had in the agency, ever. I used to work with politicians before, and when we say politician, we say ego a lot of the time. And I would say this to them, I wouldn't say tweet, because they would be like, what is tweet? I would say sentence. You need to be able to say what you want to say in a sentence. Mademoiselle, you are in France depuis 5 years. You do not know. What I have to say is very important. I cannot resume it in a sentence. Thank you. I'm glad to see that you're taking on this American enthusiasm. It'll do you some good. And every time that this was the case, it was a failure. It wasn't a failure, it was a normal political speech. So if you can't say it in a sentence, you can't say it in an hour. Now, usually I kind of am dubious of inspirational quotes that we're gonna take from Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or something like this. But in this case, there is a quote that I feel really applies. It was Einstein who said, if you can't explain your subject simply, you don't understand it well enough. If you're having a hard time boiling down what it is that you do to one tweet, it means that you haven't worked on your communications enough, you haven't worked on your product well enough to be able to explain it simply. Does that make sense? Okay. So we have to be able to say it in a tweet. So we know that we need to spend time considering who is our audience. The first question that we ask ourselves is, who is our audience? What are their expectations? What can I do to meet those expectations? What could I do to disappoint them? Okay. The second question that we're going to ask ourselves is, what's my hook? How am I going to show them that I'm not boring? How am I going to show them that I'm worth my time? The second thing we need to be able to do is get to the point in a tweet. So what do we do with all these different elements, right? So we're starting to have a lot of different elements that we need to include in our pitch, plus all of the normal stuff that we need to include, as in growth, market share, rollout, all these normal elements for a pitch that we know we have to include. How are we going to organize them? And the answer to that question is a word called sparkline. Okay? So what's a sparkline? A sparkline looks like this. And this is the next tip for a kick-ass pitch. Now, I would like to say that I discovered this, but I didn't. The woman who discovered this, her name is Nancy Duarte, and she does in the Silicon Valley what I do here in Paris. Okay? I have 2 graphic designers that work for me. She has 102. Her offices are just in front of Facebook. So in terms of pitch, presentation, in my world, she is like the Pope and Jesus all in one. Okay. If any of you ever remember seeing a presentation called An Inconvenient Truth, Une Vérité qui Dérange, by Al Gore, with all these incredible images of global warming that all shocked us, that was her. Google I.O., those sort of things, that's going to be her agency. And she came up with this. So what the heck is this? Well, I'm going to say that here, this is your pitch, and here you should have your hook. Okay? At the beginning, we have our hook. In this first part, in the very beginning, we're going to get to the point. We're going to give our tweet. We don't wait until the very end to tell exactly what it is that we do. I know here in France, when we learn how to write, we learn something called thèse, antithèse, synthèse, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So I was a writing major in school, and I think we learned this for like 5 minutes in school. Okay? But whatever, this is how we learn how to write in France, and if you apply that to pitch, your ship is going to sink. It means that you're never going to have the attention of your public, like at the very beginning, so you're going to capitalize on that attention, and you are going to tell them what it is that you've got to tell them. So here in the beginning, we're going to have our hook, we're going to get to the point, and then what is this kind of like top hat figure that we have here? This is the anti-Wikipedia pitch. Right? So Wikipedia pitch would be a flat line. Here's information, here's information, here's information. Here what we're doing is we're alternating between what is the status quo, what is the case today, okay? So if I invented like Tinder for fish or something, I don't know. Before just saying like, here's how many fish use my Tinder for fish, here's how many blah, 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 here's the, you're gonna give us some context. You're gonna talk about what is the case today for all these poor fish that just have no way to meet each other in the sea, and it's so sad, okay? Before we bring the public up to what could be the case if you adhere to my idea, if you invest in my startup, if you pick up what I'm putting down. Does that make sense? So you're going to create context. And this movement between, when we're talking about the market, okay? This movement between what is the case today, right? But what could be the case if you adhere to my idea with my Tinder for fish that is filling this huge hole in the market, going between the status quo, but what could be the case if you adhere to my idea is really effective. And it adds momentum and it adds depth to your pitch and your presentation. Okay? Okay. So we have our hook. We have all of the normal ingredients that we need in our pitch, whatever your religion may be, like if you like the Guy Kawasaki method, whatever, okay? And we're going through the market, the rollout, all of that, and then we get to the end, and we finish with, voila. All right, so the amount of pitches that I have seen that finish with, voila, are numerous. But at the same time, it's kind of hard, right? What do we say at the end? So this sparkline that Nancy Duarte calls it, I usually add a couple of my own little elements to it. So we have a flashbang at the beginning, we have our hook, we have this moment we're going to say our tweet, we have all our different arguments where we talk a little bit about what's the crappy status quo before bringing them up to what could be the case if you invest in my startup. We always end on a high note, right? We never end down here. So, you know, that'll just continue to be the case forever and ever. No, we always end on a high note. And then we kind of come back to the beginning and sort of tip our hat to the hook, okay? So if our hook for Tinder for Fish is today, there are millions and millions of fish that die alone, still living in their mom's basement, okay? Or whatever it is, okay? And then when you end, we can say something like, so that's why I really am looking for €1 million of investment so that no more fish have to die sad and alone. Thank you. All right? So just kind of reference the hook that you made at the beginning at the end, because it tells the public that we've come full circle, right? It really gives the impression that we've visited the whole issue. The circle of life is complete, kumbaya. If we look at other forms of communication where people are on stage, like I know it's not the same thing, but if we look at the greatest operas of history, if we look at the greatest ballets, even musical comedies for people who like that sort of thing, it's always going to end with a tiny morsel of what was the opening overture so that the public knows that it's over. Great, now you can clap for me. Okay? So no more presentations that finish with voila. All right? Now, let's talk about slides. At the agency, we don't we don't spend as much time as you would think working on slides. It's kind of weird. Like when I started my company, I was like, okay, I gotta find a graphic designer. Because I'm gonna be a presentations company, so I gotta find a graphic designer. And actually, the graphics team is pretty small relative to everyone that's in the team, because it's not what's going to make or break your pitch. And out of everything that I'm going to talk to you about today, there's actually only one point that is on slides. And the golden rule for me is you need to make Chinese character slides. It was I think it was Brad Lasseter, who is one of the executives at Pixar, who said that no amount of flashy animation is going to save a bad story. And the same thing is true for your pitch. No amount of gorgeous, beautiful, flashy design and an incredibly modern graphic charter is going to save a bad pitch that you haven't worked on the message, on the order of the information, on the sparkline. So the advice that I want to give you concerning slides is a Chinese character is an independent message that you can consume in a glance. You look at it, you got it. A slide should be the same. Okay? So a slide should be consumable in a glance. You should be able to look at it and get it. This is also true for builds in slides. So I know that sometimes we need to have multiple information on different slides. Great. Break it up into a build so that the public is always with you, not reading ahead. If there's a complete sentence on your slide, you're messing up. The only time you're allowed to have a complete sentence on your slide is in a quote, and in a 6-minute demo day pitch, I don't know if you have the time to start quoting Shakespeare or whoever. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay. All right. Now, this next tip that I'm going to give you, it's kind of actually a hack, actually. It's a simple solution to a difficult problem. It's something that you can do very quickly, and instantly it will change your pitch by leaps and bounds. It's the charisma hack. It's the secret weapon. Okay, so yeah, now seeing this image on the big screen, it's actually quite phallic, so I apologize for that, but that's okay. So our cues are rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions are the charisma hack in your pitch. They are what's going to really help you move from a Wikipedia presentation to an Apple product launch. So let me show you what I mean. Tinder for Fish is the best application out there for underwater creatures. They have to try and meet each other right now without any sort of technological help. It's very difficult for them. They try and do meetups, but it doesn't work. Okay, great. Information. Let's stick some rhetorical questions in there and see what happens. Okay. What is it like to try and meet your soulmate when you're a fish? It's challenging. It's really challenging. So what do? Well, you go to like speed underwater dating, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't necessarily work. So what's the solution? Well, we think the solution is Tinder for Fish. I could have chosen a better example. I kind of regret choosing that example now, actually. But that's okay. Okay, but do you see what happens? All of a sudden we have silences. All of a sudden we have variation in the voice. We have richness in the auditive aspect of the pitch. And what we're doing is we're actually preparing our audience to receive our information. Because when you write something and when I read something, it's the most efficient form of communication. Information is literally pouring into my eyes. In terms of communication, reading something is like a fiber optic connection. It goes very fast. As soon as you choose to speak that information, we're going to be downgraded to like dial-up, even Minitel. Okay? We cannot put as much information as quickly into that communication channel as if we're reading. It goes slowly. And your words and your information is literally traveling in space in order to be converted through this person's ears and into their brain. So if you go too quickly, there's so much chance that they're just not going to pick it up. Okay? So when you do a rhetorical question, when you use a rhetorical question to navigate through your ideas, You're basically telling them what's the information that's going to come next. You're engaging them, because with a bit of luck, maybe they'll think about it for a second before you give them the answer. And all of a sudden, you're with a public that's way more engaged, and that's enabling you to use silence, to speak slowly enough, and to get rid of this monotone Wikipedia-type pitch. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? You pige me? Okay, so we've talked about the different ways that we can structure our ideas when we're pitching. We've talked about the architecture of the information. We've talked about the way that we navigate through this information as a speaker. We've talked about how to not make what we call at the agency engineer slides. I have nothing against engineers, because I know that France is like a very engineer-rich country, but I do have something against their slides, which basically look like they took something out of a VCR manual and just put it up onto a slide. So we've talked about how not to make the engineer slides. We use Chinese character rule. Let's talk about you as a speaker. Okay, so you as a speaker. I train a lot of IT guys in my job, just because of the economical climate that we live in today means that technology has to be ever more client-facing, which means that people like developers have to be ever more client-facing, which is a lot of the time like a panic attack for them, okay? But that's okay. I'm picking on developers, but I shouldn't be. It's hard for anyone to be up here. And when we feel nervous, and when we feel freaked out, and when we feel vulnerable, with our body, we do the most logical thing, which is we protect ourselves, right? And that's why we're going to see pitches that kind of happen like this. A lot of the time we do what I call the doo-doo mic. We're like hanging onto the mic like it's a doo-doo, okay? It's like, so today I pitch you my startup. It's very good, you see. All small, all little, right? So we've given you all of this space here, and you're choosing to just occupy like 1 square meter of it and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm here. I'll just be 6 minutes, okay, sorry. What is that communicating, unfortunately? So this is one of the biggest differences between the slide deck that you're going to send and the investor reads it or whatever, and the pitch when you're up here, is that you're communicating in the way that you choose to organize your information, the way that you organize your information on your slides, and also what you're doing with yourself, right? Before we are heard, we are seen. And we are making all sorts of snap judgments and decisions about the person that's up here before they've even opened their mouth. So what kind of message am I communicating if I'm pitching like this? And I'll take answers if anybody knows. If I'm like this. Help! Totally, right? Help! What else? Lack of confidence, absolutely, okay? So in terms of body language, confidence takes up space. Confidence needs space. So what I'm going to ask you to do to sort of hack this confidence issue, because it is hard, is I'm going to teach you what we call at the agency the Super Bonjour. So when you enter into any sort of normal conversation or communication situation, as a French person, you're going to say bonjour, right? When you're in pitch, because this is super communication, I can see you, I can hear you, I can see what you've written up there. I'm judging you based on your charisma, on your body language, on your business model, on everything at once. Just bonjour, that's not enough. You need to do super bonjour. So what is Super Bonjour? Super Bonjour, and I think I actually am missing a slide, so you'll just have to take notes on this one, is an acronym, which is kind of a silly acronym. Like you'll see that there's one letter in the acronym that just doesn't mean anything at all, but I needed that letter in order for it to make a word. It's on stage. So that's easy to remember, right? We're pitching on stage. And what does that mean? The O means open. The N means nothing. Nothing, I mean like as in we're going to say nothing. We're going to use a silence, okay? And I'm going to explain this to you in a second. The S means smile. The T means take a breath. The A means advance towards your public. We'll talk about this more in a second. The G means after you've done all these things, then you can go. That was the gratuitous letter that I needed, but doesn't mean anything. And the E means we are going to maintain eye contact. Okay, so let's talk about what that is, and let's do it together. So the O is open. Everything that happens in your body language when you are pitching that is open is good. The only thing that should stay closed is the zipper in your pants. Okay? Other than that, yeah, the zipper in your pants, la braguette, needs to stay closed, preferably. So what does that mean? It means that instead of coming up here and doing doo-doo mic, or what are some other postures that people make when they're nervous? There's roughly about 12 postures that people will make when they're nervous. Because we've seen them all at the agency, we give them names. So this one, for example, is one we see often. I'll show you. So that one, we call it the nudist. Another one we see quite often is this one. It's like, hi, yes, I am Jean-Pierre. Okay, touching the thing. We call this one the Alzheimer's. Am I still married? Yes, I am. Okay. I pitch you my startup. Did I put pants on? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, good. Okay, so these different vulnerability postures is what we call them at the agency. There's a lot. The worst one I ever saw was a guy who did his whole pitch like this. I'll show you. So because we're being recorded, I won't tell you what we call that one, obviously. But what you need to do is, in order to make sure that we don't do this vulnerability posture, we need to open, which is the first letter in our silly acronym, okay, open. And the way that we can be sure that we open, now this is where it starts to get a bit crazy, is you're going to do the magic coconut. There's this one guy, he literally just made this face. Okay? The magic coconut. So what is the magic coconut? It's hard to do with a microphone in your hand, but I'll show you. Instead of saying yes, hello, welcome, you're just going to do this. Hi. Did you see my magic coconut? Magic coconut? I opened it. Okay. So we're going to open the magic coconut like this so that we are sure that we are being open, that we're taking up space, that we're giving our body the permission to make gestures, because contrary to what people think, making gestures is a good thing. Everybody prefers this presentation as opposed to this presentation. Yeah? Okay, so we open up by doing the magic coconut. Looks like this. So when we first start doing the magic coconut, we're not used to it, so it looks a lot like, welcome to Mass, my brothers and sisters. Okay? But it literally is just like this. Oh, I have a magic coconut, and I just opened it. Okay? If you're in a huge, enormous room, the bigger your room, the bigger your gestures and your tools. So like if you're at... I don't know, a hockey stadium or something. We can see I'm Canadian, hockey stadium. You're going to do like a magic watermelon, maybe. If you're in a meeting room, then you do like a magic tangerine. But you're just going to open up like this, okay? Open up, magic coconut. The N is nothing. Before we are heard, we are seen. So have the confidence in yourself to let people see you, okay? So, good morning, everyone. 1 second of silence. That's all it takes. And it feels way longer for you than it does for them. For us, it's wonderful. For you, it's stressful. But O, open, magic coconut. N, nothing, have a silence. S, smile. So I wasn't kidding when I said that everything in communication in terms of your body language open is good. This is a closed face. Hi, I'm happy to be here today. So I want to talk to you about my solution. And this is an open face. Hi, I'm happy to be here today. I want to talk to you about a solution that X, Y, Z, blah, 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 my amazing pitch. See the difference? Okay, O-N-S-T, take a breath. So many people, they're just in total apnea when they're pitching because it's stressful. That's why we put the T in the Super Bonjour to remind you that you need to take a breath. You can even take this breath in the moment where you're not saying anything after you've opened your magic coconut, okay? A is I'm going to advance towards the public. And you're not going to advance towards them like this, because that's weird. They'll be like, whoa, you have space issues. You're just going to push on the front of your feet like this so that we don't get this pee-pee dance going on, right? Because when we're doing the pee-pee dance, we're communicating stress, nerves, okay? Which is fine. Nothing is forbidden. You just have to be okay with what you're communicating. Now, how can we know what we're communicating? When you practice, you take your little device and you film yourself and you watch it, which is what Mr. Turtleneck's going to do in a second. Okay? So the A is I advance towards my public so that I'm in this strong posture that's not pee-pee dance. The strongest posture that we have at the agency, we call it the Christine Lagarde. Because to me, she's the toughest lady around. I love her. And her posture, I can promise you, is feet shoulder width apart, in line with the shoulders, okay? What we call in French, bomber le torse. In English, we call it hello boobs. All right? And so when you just open your magic coconut like this for 1 second, don't do it for the whole thing, because everyone will be like, wow, they got cheap coaching. They look really ridiculous. But just for 1 second, you're going to be Christine Lagarde. Okay? The G, after you've done all of these things, magic coconut, had a silence, taken a breath, pushed on your feet, then and only then can you go, which was the G that I needed to make my acronym. But you're always maintaining eye contact, okay? So in a room like this, we can't look at everybody individually. So we're just going to split the room into 3 spots, into 3 bits, and look a little bit over here, a little bit over here, a little bit over here. Okay? Does that make sense? Does everyone understand the Super Bonjour? Yeah? Can we try a Super Bonjour? Can we actually just like stand up and try a Super Bonjour? So I want you to just say, hi, and then give me my silence. My name is, okay, so let's try it. Those were some awesome Super Bonjours. Now, a couple of things that I saw in the Super Bonjours that I didn't like, so I'll just ask you to stay standing for 1 more second, because we're going to do 1 more, is we open our magic coconut up, and then we let our hands fall down like this. Okay? So what does it communicate to you when I have my hands hanging down like this, orangutan style? Pardon? Yeah, a little bit backwards, center of gravity here, and kind of like, I give up. Don't invest in me. That's a lost cause. Okay, so maybe that's not the case, because stress and stage fright can make us do all sorts of silly things. So, Super Bonjour, okay? Hi, my name is Jean-François, and I want to tell you, and then all of a sudden our hands are going into the gestures that we need to make to do our pitch. So let's try it 1 more time. Hi, silence, my name is. Go. Hi. Those are amazing Super Bonjours. Honestly, yeah, I feel like I have a purpose in this life all of a sudden. Okay, good job. So everyone understands the Super Bonjour. Last piece of advice that I'm going to give you, we've talked about the way we organize our ideas. We've talked about what to do, what not to do on our slides, is once again a piece of advice for you as a messenger. So we've done our Super Bonjour. To make sure that we don't do the pee-pee dance, we're going to do the Panther. Okay? So what is the Panther? The Panther is the clever way to occupy all the space that was given you and to show this confidence that you have, even though you may not feel it because you're stressed out. So we need to move. The body needs to move. So that means that we're going to do something like a pee-pee dance, like this maybe, which is stress, nerves, not great. All we're going to do is canalize that movement, put it on a horizontal axe, because a panther is 2 things. First of all, a panther is a quadruped. He has 4 appendages and not 2. Okay? So we're going to, when we move, we're moving forward with our gestures like this, like the panther who's moving forward. Does that make sense? We make round, full gestures that go towards the public. And then we're going to move. A panther is on his branch in the jungle. Right? If he falls off the branch, oh, he's dead. So we're on same thing. We're on a horizontal axis here on the stage. We don't know why. There's a world of difference between. So I want to tell you about my solution, which I'm convinced is the solution to XY problem. Okay? And all of a sudden just being on our branch, like the panther. So I want to tell you about my solution, which I'm convinced is the solution to XYZ problem. See the difference? Same message, not the same message. Okay? So, Panther, not PP. Now, once again, I didn't come here today to talk to you about how to pitch. I imagine that if you have made even 10 euros in turnover from your startup, you know how to pitch your startup. If you've had investment, if you've already pitched for investment, you know what the ingredients are for a pitch. You learn that here at the family or wherever it is that you get your startup information. Okay, so I wanted to go a step further than that and talk to you about the classic mistakes that people make. The things that we don't necessarily talk about, right? Like these elements of first impression in terms of what we do with our body. Don't be a bonehead and put lots of crap on your slides. Just consider it like a Chinese character. It has to be an independent message that I can consume in a glance. So these tips, once again, are respect your public. Put yourself in their place. Think about what it must be like to be an investor that gets pitched up to the wazoo. Don't commit the errors that are going to make them mad. Be public-centric. Be public empathetic. Don't start with your CV. If your CV is the most interesting thing about you, you have a problem. Okay? No, that's not true. If your diploma is the most interesting thing about you, you have a problem. If your CV is the most interesting thing about you, that's fine. I would probably like to be beside you at a dinner. Okay? Use a hook. Use one sentence, a pair of figures, a startling image, something that's going to show the public, I am not boring. What I have to say is interesting. It's not going to be one of those presentations. If you can't tweet it, you can't pitch it. I've been doing this I've had the agency for 3 years, working in communications before that, have never, ever come across a case where if they couldn't say it in a sentence, it was a raging success. No, if you can't say it in a tweet, you can't say it in an hour. Use a sparkline. Go and look up Nancy Duarte. She has devoted her career to this media of pitch and presentation. She has several books on the market. I promise you, it's totally worth it. She's amazing. Make sure to move between what is the case today, but what could be the case if you adhere to my idea. It's so much stronger, and it just makes what you have to sell seem that more valuable, because context is everything. I mean, ask anyone in marketing today. Context is everything. So give us that point of context so we can really understand what it is you're trying to tell us. Don't end with voila. The end of our pitch it's just a nice way to wrap up if we reference what we said in the beginning at the hook to give the impression to the public that we've seen the whole thing, we've come full circle, the feedback loop is closed. Chinese character slides. Don't fill your slides up with crap. No complete sentences on a slide, ever, unless you're quoting someone. If you can't consume it in a glance, there's too much stuff on it. A build can be consumed in a glance. If you have multiple builds on your slides, that's fine. Rhetorical questions, the hack to charisma. Automatically getting rid of the monotone, making sure you use silences, preparing your audience to hear your information, announcing what the information will be so that when they hear it, they've got it. Because something that's said is fleeting. We say it, poof, it's gone. If it's important, you need to repeat it. I know in school here in France, we learned that if you repeat something in communication, it's because you're an idiot, you don't know vocabulary. But if you repeat something orally, it means that you are explaining to your public what is important. This is important. You should retain this. Okay? Do the Super Bonjour on stage. Open, nothing, smile, take a breath, advance towards your public. Then and only then can you go, but whilst remaining in eye contact. And when you move on the stage, because you should be moving on the stage to show everybody that I'm important, what I have to say takes up space, I have confidence in what I'm saying, do the Panther, not the PP. Okay? Is that all right for everyone? Okay. So I put my Twitter handle up here because pretty soon I'm going to have like 700 followers. Yeah, thank you. So the 700th follower, if you live in Paris, I'll send you a little care package. And I will take any questions before Turtleneck comes up here. Yep.
You keep referring to a build. Oh, sorry. Hi, sorry. You keep referring to a build. You talk about you have a Chinese character. What do you mean by a build?
So I could have been more clear about that. Sorry, my apologies. A build is when we will reveal certain pieces of information on the same slide gradually.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
For me, there are two types of listeners. People that are interested in.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
There are two types of listeners. People that are interested in cash, money, and the ones that are interested in idea. They want to lobby for something. Would you change or adapt something in your recommendation depending on who you judge the person is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that factors into the first primordial rule of pitch, which is who is your audience. And one of those questions that is hiding behind who is your audience is, in an audience of multiple profiles, who do I want to target, right? So if you want idea capital, like if you want information, input, feedback, etc., then you're just going to factor your pitch accordingly. If you want cash, you're going to change your pitch accordingly. So it's difficult to target intensely both of these demographics. Both can be interested in what you have to say, but you do have to make a choice. Who am I speaking to? Does that answer your question?
When you hook your audience at the beginning, when you sometimes the audience doesn't react like you expected, what can you do? I give you an example. I don't know, like what it's like, or how do you back up your picture when you take picture? And the person reply, I don't take picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
so you're
so
like,
totally.
okay, end of the story.
Yeah, totally. And you're just like, okay, I feel really alone right now. Yeah. Okay, so this, some people will do a hook that involves like audience participation. Okay? And this is always a very dangerous thing. The only time I would advise you to do a hook which involves audience participation, I was working with a startup a couple of days ago, and their hook was, what's the one thing you can never buy more of? And I was like, oh God. This is going to be scary business. And of course, everybody had an answer. The answer they were looking for was time, but they got there after like 4 or 5 people said completely irrelevant things. So the only time I would advise that you interact with the public is when you have a friendly public, right? So, I mean, everybody here has taken time out of their life to come and hear what I have to say. I don't think anyone's going to be like, what bullshit, you know, like, and even if they do, they'll probably just keep it to themselves because everybody's polite. So I know that this is quite a friendly public, which is why I would be like, oh, let's applaud like Americans. Can you imagine what it'd be like if everyone was like, yeah, be like, oh God. So when you don't know who you have in the public, don't necessarily trust them with the success of your pitch because you could fall flat on your face. I would advise in a pitch not involving the public, right? That's why the magic weapon, the secret weapon, is rhetorical questions, not actual questions. So stick with things like something that you think they probably don't know about your market, something that you went through that is proof of what it is that you're selling. Usually when we're towards not a hostile public, but a public where there's going to be resistance, at the agency we advise them to do what we call FOS, which means start with the facts before you give your opinion, and then humanize it with just a touch of sentiment. Okay? So, for example, starting your pitch with, there's not enough women in startups today, and that just has to stop. It just makes me so mad. Okay, maybe a lot of people will agree. Maybe a lot of people will be like, you kidding? There's tons of women in startups. They should just go back home and make a cake, right? All of those people, they don't agree, so they're not listening to me. But facts are stubborn. So if you start with the facts, so if you say something like, for example, Paris is the 3rd best startup economy in the world. That's awesome, right? 100,000 startups came out of the Silicon Sentier last year. Oh, by the way, 200 of them were started by women. So all of a sudden, it's the same message, but it's not the same message. Do you see what I mean? So fact, opinion, sentiment, if you feel like there might be some resistance to what you're saying. Okay? Is that it? Shall we ask our guinea pig to come up here? Let's applaud him like Americans. So I'm going to ask you to give me the pitch. I don't know how long it is, but I'm going to cut you off at like 4 minutes. Is that okay with you? Okay, here you go. Just let me get organized 1 second. Go for it.
Hi. So my name is Turtleneck. Actually, in Czech, we say Karel, so you can call me Karel, it'd be easier. And I'm here tonight because today, because I think a lot of you might have a love-hate relationship with your voicemail. You know, you love your voicemail because it's an occasion for you to listen to people you love, to hear good news. And sometimes you hate the voicemail because you have people that leave you messages and you can't listen to them. You're in a meeting, you're in a bar, in a situation where it's too noisy to listen to your voicemail. And also, the message on the voicemail, the greetings, they are not personal. Why do your wife and your boss have to hear the same thing? You love to have something a little more personal when people are calling you. So I'm today trying to create a new company called Voxist, and what we want to do is to make the voicemail something much more like a vocal assistant. Why is that? Because in today's world, mobile is the device that you have with you all the time. It's becoming your first way of interact with the rest of the world. And if you are working, a lot of you're spending your day with your mobile very nearby. But if people leave you voicemail, you need to listen to it. In some cases, that means you need to call a number, go through an IVR-like menu, and you have to remember which touch to press, how to delete, and you have to go through several voicemail when there is only one you want to listen. Hopefully, since now a couple of years, we have the visual voicemail, what was created by Apple. So maybe some of you have an app, and you can actually directly choose which voicemail you want to listen, but you still have to listen to it. And a lot of people still have no access to that functionality because it's pretty limited to Apple devices. So what we want to do with Voxist is to make this available to everyone and to go much farther. So by example, if somebody leaves you a voicemail, then you will get a text or an email with actually the transcription of what has been said, so you can read it. So if you're in a meeting and somebody is leaving you a voicemail to tell you, very good news, very important news, or just canceling the next meeting and trying to change the time, you get the information, and if you have to stop your meeting because it's something you need to react upon, and you don't have to wait to the end of the meeting, go there, listen to the voicemail, and it's too late to get the information. Also, we want to make it more personal. So what we will allow you to do is that you can select different type of messages for different type of people. So the greetings are much more personal. So when my wife calls, she has something where she says, "Hey, sweetie, I'm so sorry I can't talk to you. I promise I will get back to you as soon as I can." When my boss calls, he has something much more, "I'm probably in a meeting, I'll get back to you as soon as possible." And in business context, you can go farther than that. You can make it so that the person that is calling you has more information about his account or what's the important latest information about the relationship you have with that customer. So who do we try to target with that service? Well, currently, if you look in Europe, you have around 30 million self-employed people. A lot of them, they don't have assistant. I mean, even in the office context, it's more and more the case that you don't have assistant anymore that can take care of your calls when you're not available. So we are targeting that type of situation where, for your work, you are always on the road, you are very often meeting. I think, a lot of you as entrepreneurs, you are in that situation. You're spending a lot of your days in meetups, in meeting with your financer, or looking for new people to come into your startup, and you're not available all the time. So it's great if you can have this relationship with them where when they give you a call, they have something that's much more personalized. And we want to go much further with intelligence artificial, so actually you can have a conversation with the voicemail and become a real vocal assistant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good job. Now, oops, sorry.
Hi, so my name is George.
Okay, so we had some doo-doo mic going on, right? Oh, I feel so reassured to just hang on to this right now. But then we had a magic coconut, so that's good. Let's try and get the magic coconut from the beginning. We had this joke kind of going on, like integrating the information that was already said in order to make a joke. That communicates, you know, I'm comfortable, right? Charisma, that's really good. So this is an example of when we want to do some Panther and not pee-pee dance.
I think a lot of you might have a love-hate relationship with your voicemail.
Right, so this is the pee-pee dance. So we're just going to, a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with their voicemail.
Here are good news. And,
Now here's the thing about silences. Silences are one of these interesting phenomenon like energy. Energy, the more you spend, the more you have, right? Happiness, the more you give, the more you have. Silence is the same. The more you make, the less you're going to say, but the more efficient your words are going to be. So using these silences means, first of all, that we really know our presentation. So what I asked you to do was difficult, because it's totally spontaneous. It's hard to be prepared. But we can see the importance of preparation when we're up here, right, Carell? Yeah, totally. And by speaking slower and by using silences, we're just going to dilute or concentrate each word so that we say more with less, right? Because I don't know how all of you felt, but I think that the main arguments for using augmented voicemail, or what's the name of your company? Voxist. For using Voxist could have been apparent to us in 1 minute as opposed to 4, right? If we were doing something like, okay, guys, let's just be frank for a minute. What do we hate about voicemail? We're a bunch of millennials in this room. What do we hate about voicemail? First thing, big fat silence, to let that sink in. Second thing, big fat silence. And third thing. So Voxist is trying to change what we consider is an archaic tool from the 80s to be in line with the smart generation and the way that we use smartphones today. Let me give you 3 examples. Well, thank you. This guy's like my best fan ever. Can you please come to every presentation I give? Okay, so let me give you 3 examples of how Voxist wants to change all of this and why it's a viable business and you should invest in Voxist. Here we go. Okay, so in 30 seconds, we've done what we've done in 4 minutes, which is great, because time is the only thing we can't make more of. All right, let's keep going. Now, what I did here was a technique which we call vocal bullet points. So you stick the number of the point that you're trying to make out here in the air to essentially make kind of like the archaic version of a slide. First thing, and as long as the gesture is relevant, we leave it out here. Second thing, third thing. And it just helps you to take up space and to use a nice listing effect without having to use a slide or whatever, okay?
hate about the voicemail because you have people that give you messages and you can't listen to them. You're in a meeting and you're in a bar, in a situation where it's too noisy to listen to you.
So for me, this was an example of how really considering your audience would have enabled us to take out some stuff in our presentation. Okay, we're talking to a room of smart young people. As soon as we say, so we all have a love-hate relationship with voicemail, don't we? And this knowing look that you'll have a look at voicemail, we all think for a second, yeah, hate voicemail. Please, just send me a text. I beg you. Okay, if we were really putting ourselves in the place of the public we would know that, and we would kind of know that that's enough. I don't know about you, but to go on after and say this example, this example, this example, this example, to me I felt a little bit like, come on, get to the point. But maybe that was just my feeling? Yeah? Okay.
Also, the message on the voicemail, the greetings, they are not personal. Why do your wife and your boss have to hear the same thing? You love to have something a little more personal when people are calling you. So, I'm trying to create a new company called Voxist.
Okay, so this is the last example that I'm going to take. For me, this was an example of how the sparkline, do you remember the sparkline, the hat figure, is really important because he was doing exactly that. So here's why voicemail is crappy. Here's why voicemail is crappy. Here's another reason why voicemail is crappy. So the sparkline would have looked like this. Tuk, 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 tuk. Tuk, 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 tuk. Okay, and we should have more of a, especially at the beginning, tuk, 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 straight away. Okay, give us the biggest, brightest berry in your basket straight away. Stay up here for a while, okay, and now I'm making my next argument. I'm gonna go down to the bottom of the hat for not too long before coming back up. Okay, but I feel like this pitch overall was good for a lot of reasons. Number one, because you volunteered to come up and give it. Always be pitching, right? No, seriously, good job, good job. So always be pitching. Like honestly, we're scared that we're gonna bug someone with our pitch, especially in these social situations. If we are, so what? Who cares, right? When I started my business, I had a sales coach who's the best. And he said to me, he's like, Annabelle, ABS, always be selling. It's like, you have enough friends. Now you gotta make some clients. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's the same thing. You know, if you are looking for investment, if you're looking for exposure, if you're looking for intellectual capital to come into your company, always be pitching. You got enough friends. Make some business contacts. All right? That we had this good hook at the beginning. Work to find your hook. Afterwards, if you recycle the same hook over and over, that's fine. If anyone has ever seen another video of me pitching on YouTube, I always use the same jokes because I know they work. And that way you're confident to say them. We had these rhetorical questions at the end. So what do you do? However, at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, that's when we got to the point. 2 minutes and 20 seconds. That's how long it took to say. So Voxus is the solution that I'm not going to give you 2 minutes and 20 seconds of my time on credit. After 30 seconds, I've checked out. Okay? So if you haven't got to the point in the first 8% of the presentation, we've got hook, tweet. All right? No pee-pee dance, only Panther, like this. But you were open in your gestures. Did we feel like he really embodied his solution? Do we feel like he believed what he said? Do we see that credibility and that confidence? Yeah? Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I'm gonna have a coffee and a glass of water, so if anyone wants to come and ask me any questions. But thank you very much for your attention. You've been an involved, engaged audience. I didn't see any of this, which is like so super rare. That's very considerate. So thank you very much, and thank you, Karel.
Thank you.